Hey everybody, welcome back to Stories from the Low Season. This is episode 5, so we're kicking off side B of the album. And this is a really captivating, intriguing, somewhat eerie story that is written by a great writer named Alexandra McGuinness, based loosely or inspired by the song Losing Control.
Yeah, it's definitely a good losing control piece of fiction. And the imagery really reminds me of being in Dublin, which I've only been a few times, but the imagery is so spot on.
And there's something so authentic in the voice of the story, and I'm glad that Alexandra recommended that we use her friend, Cynthia Fortune, to come in and read it, who's not a pro voiceover person or actor, but just is a friend and understood the story and where Alexandra McGuinness was coming from. And so there's sort of a connection there.
Right.
That I think as people who've played in bands, we understand, like
chemistry, authenticity.
It's all bread and butter, you know?
All that stuff.
So all of that is present in this. So I hope you enjoy it. Once again, this is Cara and Cordelia, written by Alexandra McGuinness, performed by Cynthia Fortune, and featuring the song Losing Control by Poolside.
I'm so sure I've met you before. You look so like someone I know. A complete blank look by someone you've met 100 times because they've met both of you and their brain has been fused. You've wiped each other out. You cancel one another out. Cara wipes Cordelia and vice versa. It took you a long time to work that out, but then again, it took you a long time to meet Cordelia. You had years of people doing double takes and never getting past go with certain characters on account of your doppelganger. There is no manual for these types of situations. You still don't understand it fully. You've Googled it. You first saw her as a child in a department store on Grafton Street. You had very different mothers. Yours was tall and elegant, and was letting you try on the pale shoes with a heel. Hers was small and harassed, and was making her take home the ugly shoes that would last an eternity. There was no mirror between you, but you felt there should have been. You both did. You had the same faces, and the same hands, and the same difficult hair, and how different would your life have been if you'd swapped right there and then in Switzer's on Grafton Street. The next time she didn't see you, but you saw her. Her heels were much higher than yours then, and she glided across the street while you shrank into your seat on the 46A bus, bogged down with so many insecurities, passed down from every tall and elegant family member she never had to meet. A boy in a pea coat trailed behind her, and you heard him shout, "Cordelia!" And you thought, how could anyone be called such a glamorous name? She saw you the next time. You were dancing, and she envied you. She thought that you were freedom, but you were just stoned and lost. And then she saw your face, her face. It toppled her. Because Cordelia had convinced herself that if she was anything, she was unique, a one-off. She had people write her poems about the perfect cleft of her chin, and she had clawed her way into being thought of as a beauty. Nobody had ever said that you, Cara, was a beauty. Maybe it was the way you carried yourself, those few extra pounds perhaps, but she thought you were a taunt against her. How elaborate. You didn't speak. She left crying. Gradually, you became used to each other's spectres around the city. She stuck her tongue out at you on the quays one night when all the Christmas lights were up. You both had new boyfriends. The first time you pretended to be her, it didn't go very well. You were drunk. A man in a bar, wearing a dark grey suit and thick knitted eyebrows, had mistaken you for her. You went home with him. He became more and more confused as the night went on. He started to not only question the identity of Cara or Cordelia, but of himself. By 4 o'clock in the morning, he couldn't remember what street he lived on, nor how he liked to take his tea. You had rendered him a temporary amnesiac. It didn't work being Cara sometimes and Cordelia another. People couldn't handle it. If you were to pretend to be Cordelia, you had to commit to it. She was better at it than you from the beginning. At first, there were just little signs. Videotapes at Extravision you knew you hadn't rented. A photo of you at the Galway races in Image magazine. Then she went further. She couldn't help it. She broached your family. "Where's that nice green dress you were wearing the other day, love? You must introduce us to Brian one of these days." "You're right. Those organic tomatoes you bought last week are just lovely." They preferred her. Of course they did. She walked tall, laughed, brought gifts. She flirted with your father. In their eyes, she was a pure girl baby. Deep down, you knew there was nothing there, didn't you? Sitting under that weeping ash tree in Stephen's Green, Cordelia came up behind you and put her hands over your eyes. "Hi, Cara," she said in your voice. The nerve, the plagiarism. It's fine for your ghost to stay in the shadows and spook you from the sidelines, but it is not acceptable to jump out in the middle of the day, in the middle of the city, in the middle of the summer. "What are you eating, Cara?" You were eating a bagel from a fancy bagel and coffee place round the corner. "You shouldn't eat stuff like that." Cordelia puffed her cheeks out like a blowfish. "You know what I live on?" You shook your head and took in her legs, which were, up close, just that bit svelter than yours. The bit that makes the difference. "Soup, and salad, and the odd Red Bull, and maybe a Diet Coke every so often." "Cordelia?" She nodded. You didn't say anything else. You couldn't think of what to say. There was an electricity, almost visible. You felt that you nearly had access to her mind, but that there was a block. She was keeping you out. She, however, could get in. You felt she could see inside your head. It means heart, the name Cordelia. She took your hand and placed it over her heart, over her left breast. It was firm like polished wood. Can you feel my heart beating? A flutter like a grown robin trapped inside an egg. It also means daughter of the sea. When I die, I want to be buried at sea, like the Vikings. Isn't that a little naive or illegal? You stammered. No, it's not. It's perfectly reasonable, especially if you just go and jump off a pier or a cliff into the fucking sea when you're good and ready, my dear. Cordelia smiled and laughed and managed to suggest both sincerity and guile. What does Cara mean? Friend. Of course. Well, that's what we are, isn't it? We were born friends. You knew that that was never the point. Cordelia was not your friend. Both of you were not supposed to exist. This was a mistake that had been made. Old mirrors produced double images, but phantom feelings and memories were now occurring, bobbing up to the surface and breaking the waves. You had never been to Paris, yet there you were, walking down some boulevard in your mind with a man who asked you, "How long do you mean to be content?" Endless nightmares of a house collapsing in a flood, your hair, Cordelia's hair, streaming around your shoulders, a scream in the distance, but your own lips firmly pursed as the water swallowed you up. Cordelia was rotten, and she was rotting you. Her strength was deafening, dictating. How was your ordinary good nature, I mean, you weren't a saint or anything, supposed to rub off on her? Messages left on your phone. Hello, identical woman. Click. Do I terrify? Click. Beware, I am air. Blocked number, nothing to do about it. It was your voice, after all. Who were you to tell? She had the upper hand. She had the information. You came home to find her kissing your nicest boyfriend to date. He was the most interesting. You heard the familiar voice. You walked to the door. She knew you were there. Your heart clutching the matter around it, burning. She could see you. She locked eyes with you and whispered, ostensibly to him, Venus is known as Earth's evil twin. I don't think that it's fair. How could he not tell? You tried to forgive him, but that feeling didn't come. You went to churches. You prayed for a spare soul. It was not fair that she seemed to share yours. That look your father gave you sometimes, he was searching for her, not finding the same game in your eyes. Cara doesn't feel like playing today, he would drawl petulantly and go fix himself an American drink. What games did they play? What did she give him? You started to hear things about yourself, stories, rumors. Cordelia took to leaving notes for you in the players' notice board in Trinity College. Cara, don't ignore me. You tore them down, explained to people that they were a joke of sorts. Cara, why are you such a brainless bitch? The stories continued. A constant hubbub of muted whispers seemed to surround you. You spent time trying to decide if Cordelia was spreading the lies, or did she in fact do these things guised as you? In which case, they were not rumors. It wasn't me. It was my double acting up. Is not an excuse. Cara, it's time we came to an arrangement. I'll find you. You found her first. You saw her standing by the lock gates, right by the Huben Bridge. It must have been just midnight. The water was low in the lock. She was tapping at the reeds around the gate with her foot where the water poured in, mocking those reeds that were all caught up in the wooden machinery. You noticed her shoes, but they were your shoes. She was sticking your green velvet flats in the murky water. She didn't care, the opposite. She felt the squelch with pleasure, and you felt a hum of it. Her slender ankle laughed. She was wrapped in your coat also, a suede one you took time in choosing. You went back to the shop twice before you decided on it. Now its hem was caked in mud, canal mud, ratty mud. She didn't see you until you were behind her. She was peering down into the stone pit of the lock. There was no boat waiting to pass. She smelled of milk. You were alone, the two of you. She turned away with a dismissive huff. She had been drinking. You couldn't decide what to say first. The breaths were getting stuck low in your chest, like a child who can't voice all of their complaints in a comprehensible fashion. You pushed her, a gentle shove, to make her listen, to make her look at you. That's why you did it. She turned, and as she did, she wobbled. Your eyes met. Hers grew wider, panicked. She reached out for you, one snow-white hand, but you didn't take it. You stepped back, and she was gone. One splash. Not even a shriek, a shout, a murmur. You looked over the edge and saw Cordelia scrambling at the sheer wall of the lock. Must have ripped her fingernails clear out, the coat ballooning around her, then soaking. First at the sides, and then throughout until it dragged her down. Her mouth was poised in a plaintive O shape as she slipped beneath the black. There were some taxis passing, but no people. It was mostly officers around that area. You took her bag, purple leather, puffy blistered skin. You walked around that night. You began to feel dislocated. Is that the word? You walked as far as Phibsborough. What had happened started to feel like something you'd seen on television. You didn't believe it. You didn't believe in yourself. Sitting in a cafe, drinking sweet tea, early that morning, you heard it come over the police radio. It said that you had died. The place was full of guards, just finishing the night shift, the odd cab driver too. The fried breakfast got into your hair and made it hang around your eyes. You clasped Cordelia's bag to your chest. They had dragged her out. The request was for a particular guard to do a next of kin run. They wanted this man, the man 2 tables away, to tell your parents that you, Cara, were dead. When you saw the news later that day, you found out that they'd confirmed your identity by fingerprint. She was found by a prostitute. Her face had been half-eaten by rats. Your fingerprints had been taken for your passport. Hers hadn't. You'd never have guessed that you would have shared a detail like that. It meant that you were the same, a split creature. You left it at that. Took on Cordelia's life. Left yours behind. What choice did you have? You can't go back. And now, what is left? You hate Cordelia's life more than you ever hated Cordelia. It drones. You stood beside your sister in a queue at the supermarket, but she refused to see you because she knows that you are dead. She wasn't able to see you just standing there because she knows there's no such thing as ghosts. You reached out your hand. Help, you almost said. Rain starts to fall. At night, Cordelia returns. She sits in the corner of her room with that raggedy, chewed skull. She visits you in nightmares. You see all the memories that she didn't share with you. It's no longer Paris in the spring. How long do you mean to be content? You see the house in the flood, her childhood memory, her trauma. You feel the weight of the water and the soggy bricks. You see it as though you were a child. You hear yourself wailing as a hand, a woman's hand, tries to hold on to you and is swept away. The chimney collapses. The slates come down. Everyone is gone. Losing control. Cordelia, now Cara, now Cordelia, alone with her flame-bright hair floating. Truth is, she was alone, more alone than you ever were. You were worried because just as old mirrors show double images on occasion, sometimes they become dimmer, they flatter, the image seems to disappear. Brown and gold specks on the glass. Is that what is occurring? Your skin is growing thinner. You are becoming a see-through girl. You wonder if the same thing is happening on the inside as the outside. You get the shivers when it's not even cold. Each hair of yours is halved in density, each freckle dimmed. Your teeth are translucent. You cut yourself last week while opening the gas bill. Your blood flowed like cheap wine. You are now thinner than you want to be. You play with that mirror most days. Cordelia's grand old bedroom mirror. It would be right that Cordelia's only fine possession would be her grand old mirror. You stand in front of light bulbs and watch them grow orange behind you, like you were one of those old goatskin shades that your mother brought back from holiday. You try to cast a shadow in the midday sun, but it gets fainter and fainter. Your eyes are marbles, those cheap, clear ones that no one ever wanted to swap. You wonder, when will it happen? When will you join Cordelia? How and when will you finally disappear?